think it's a holistic conversation that you have to collectively have to learn about what each person needs in that. I mean, it's in every single moment. It isn't a check off the box. She's in a wheelchair, she needs this. It's like, she's in a wheelchair and she's going to be in this environment today. What does that look like versus the environment she's going to be in tomorrow? And so it's fluid. It's an ongoing conversation and exploration collectively to figure out what we all need.
Hey, everybody. I am Dr. Kristen Donnelly of the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. At Abbey Research, we deeply believe that empathy is intellectual, not emotional, which means we can all work on it, improve it, deepen it, strengthen it. It's powered by curiosity, which is the only thing that has ever changed the world. And we spend our days helping everybody be more curious about themselves and the world around them so that we can understand each other deeper and honestly all be human a little bit better together, because none of us know what we're doing. We're all just doing our best. So let's help each other figure it out. And this series is in service of that goal and vision. It's called Welcome to My World. And I have the incredible privilege of chatting to folks who are different than me, which is literally everybody, about something in their lives that we should know more about, something they're an expert in, something they're passionate about. And today's guest is absolutely no exception. I am joined by Alycia Anderson, who I had the eminent privilege of taking the TEDx stage with earlier this year in South Lake Tahoe, California. The minute I heard Alycia rehearse her talk, I was like, I need her on Welcome to My World. So I am so excited to be able to share her incredible warm genius with you today. She is a motivational speaker, not just on TEDx stages, but on many others. A published writer, a corporate diversity and inclusion coach, and the VP of sales at KnockCRM, which is an award-winning multifamily technology company. She holds a European master's degree in adapted physical activity, which I'm definitely asking her about because I've never heard of that, and that sounds amazing. She's a tennis player, cyclist, and identical twin. I met her twin. She's rad. And she also happens to be wheelchair bound since birth. Alycia shares her journey to help communities and companies understand the true benefits inherent to building diverse and inclusive workspaces. Alycia right-sizes everyday obstacles to open your mind to a world of possibility. And in having conversations with her for the last several months, I can tell you that's exactly what she does. Alycia, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. My gosh, what a great intro. My bio's a little long. I think I need to shorten it, but thank you.
Oh, I've had a couple people that send me like 12 paragraphs and I'm like, cool, I'm picking one. But there's so much richness in there that I wanted people to know. So speaking of, let's talk about that adapted physical activity degree. Talk to me about that. That sounds amazing.
So I focused my educational progression on the physical activity. I was put in wheelchair tennis when I was 4 years old.
Okay.
And it has been the foundation of my life to learn to be competitive, active, one with my wheelchair through play. And I attribute it to be one of the huge components of my life that has given me sort of the just the inspiration and the ability to move forward in my career and onto the speaking stage and all the things that I'm doing. And so through my education, both of my degrees are in adapted physical activity in some way. And from my master's degree specifically, it was a European master's degree. 35 students from around the world, one per country, got this scholarship to move to Belgium and study disability sports science, Paralympic sports, and just the sort of background and science of physical activity for people with disabilities, how to adapt, and how to sort of empower people with disabilities to be as strong and active and healthy as they possibly can, living with a body that might be a little bit different than others. So I focused on that in my studies because it was a foundational thing that was highly important for me in my progression in my life. And I wanted to pave that forward and study it and learn about the science of it in my education.
Fascinating. I love this idea. I loved what you said, become one with my chair through play. Like that phrase is going to stick with me for sure, because I have a body that technically looks like it functions well, but it doesn't. And I have never become one with my body through play. I have never become one with any of myself, excuse me, through play. So I love your focus on that. And I love the science. I'm sitting here like, oh, I want to take that master's degree, because I have so many questions, especially after watching the Paralympics, wondering the process and the science behind the relationship between the ability aids and the, the sport and kind of all that other stuff. It sounds amazing.
The biomechanics of it, it is amazing. And it's very technical, lots of equipment, and there's so many variations of what is needed for each individual body and disability. I mean, there's a huge breadth and disability. 1 in 4 of us will have some type of disability in our life. So whether it's like me in a wheelchair or somebody who's visually impaired or, the list go on and on. And there is a real science to the technology and the tools that are needed to function within the space and the body that you have, to find, the most optimal way to perform. And, I studied it. I loved it. The big thing, driving force for me in moving to Belgium and doing this was part of the program was focused on Paralympic like science and engagement. And that was my big driver. It was my like bucket list dream to work for the Paralympics and be involved. And when I lived in Europe, they took our whole class to the International Paralympic Committee headquarters, and I introduced myself to every key player there. And I ended up becoming a member of the educational committee, and we wrote a inclusive educational program that was distributed through schools globally. And I did my thesis on it, and it was bucket list, really cool opportunities that I created for myself moving over there and doing that. So it was really awesome. I
am overwhelmed with gobsmackedness. That is so rad. So then after that bucket list, everything in Europe is on a contract. So you only have so much time to do a job. You don't get just to stay there. So then from there, did you go from Belgium? Did you head back home to California and then start the corporate thing? Or is there something in between there?
I did. I worked for them and during my master's degree. And I actually, as my master's degree wrapped up, I moved back to the United States and I finished the writing and editing and the publishing of this program. I just had this desire to have a corporate career at that point.
Okay.
And my twin sister, we sort of follow each other through our job paths, and she had this amazing career within corporate America, and she was just thriving. And so at that point, there was something that shifted in me. And I made the switch to, a corporate position, executive position, which is what I've been doing for the past 15 years or so.
Okay.
And which has also opened up a lot of opportunities for learning and speaking about inclusion and diversity from a disability accessibility, from a disability perspective within a work environment. It has really been my, education in learning how to talk about this stuff through my experiences. So that's kind of how I made the transition. The two don't necessarily fully connect.
Oh, I think they do for sure. I mean, also because the Paralympic Committee is absolutely corporate. So 100%. I think that makes a lot of sense. So when I've heard a lot of talk about ability advocacy Some people want it to just focus on physical stuff. Some people want it to also involve mental health and learning disabilities and things like that. From your perspective as a practitioner, what language should we be using to talk about it? Should we be separating the physical from the mental? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's all in one. And
Okay.
I think inclusion of people with disabilities and the needs are individual for every single person. It's like a thumbprint.
Okay. I like that.
I don't really think you can separate.
Okay.
There is no inclusion of people with disabilities without accessibility and what they need. And it's separating the equality conversation from equity, finding out what the person needs in their space, meeting them there, giving them the resources, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
So we can all sort of collectively reach a finish line, and the resources and needs of each of us, depending on the disability, are going to vary like massively. Yeah. So I don't think you can separate it. I think it's a holistic conversation that you have to collectively have to learn about what each person needs in that. I mean, it's in every single moment. It isn't a check off the box. She's in a wheelchair, she needs this. It's like she's in a wheelchair and she's going to be in this environment today. What does that look like versus the environment she's going to be in tomorrow? And so it's fluid. It's an ongoing conversation and exploration collectively to figure out what we all need.
I like that. I like that idea of if we broaden the whole umbrella, then we can also talk about how those things intersect within people. Because so I'm in, my parent company is in manufacturing, for anyone who's just met me. Hi. So we live a lot through OSHA. And the phrase that OSHA uses that I actually really love is reasonable accommodation. And I think that so much of life would be better if we would all reasonably accommodate each other and kind of figure things out. But I, with how my body is, my mental health is so tied to how I feel about my body. I cannot imagine, especially somebody who experiences paralysis later in life or something like that, that we can separate mental health from the physical process of learning how to move your body differently. It sounds like that would really truncate any sort of progress in a new life.
It absolutely can. And the mental health piece for me and my journey has been the thing I needed to overcome really first and I'm comfortable within myself to then not be insecure or embarrassed or frustrated to tackle the physical things that I need to figure out along the way.
Yeah.
And we all have body image issues.
I mean, find me someone who says they never have, and we'll find you a liar. Like, that's just not how things work. Yeah.
Yeah. So, for me, like getting over the mind over matter piece of it first has been extremely important to find a personal acceptance within my own self, which has taken my entire life. Like I have not always been so secure and empowered by my diversity. It's been something that I've wanted to hide away and wish away at times. And, and so I think we learn these things as we grow and get more comfortable with ourselves over time. And the insecurities are always going to be there a little bit, I think. So
for sure. I think it's mental health is a practice as well. And in so many ways, medicated and non-medicated mental health is a lot of decisions and practices and things like that. So the brain is a muscle, just like everything else in our body. It needs to be worked out. And so that's how we do things. I'm really curious, when you head into corporate environments for training, what is some of the things that are like the first barriers to the stuff that you say in terms of people's ideas? Like, what is the first flags they put up as to why they can't be more accessible or inclusive?
I mean, a lot of it from a disability perspective, these conversations when you're talking about accessibility is punitive. I mean, people are worried about their bottom line. They're worried about time being wasted. They're worried about the legality and things like that. And to be honest with you, from a disability perspective, that's a heavy load to carry. And like, try to push, like from a corporate perspective in my career and now speaking, like I've been invited to meetings that are upstairs. I've been excused off properties that are not accessible because they've been sued. I have a whole gamut of stories that I can share, but where I'm finding my success is understanding that we are not going to be comfortable with having these conversations unless we start having them. And from a disability perspective, we avoid them a lot because we're scared of saying the wrong thing. We're scared of the legality of it. We're scared of ADA. We're scared of all these things. And so I really try to shift that conversation within businesses. Like if we can start to look at Americans with Disabilities Act, the opportunity to create more inclusive environments for everyone. Each time we take a step forward in that, we have a small piece in widening pathways, opening doors for all of us moving into the future. And disability can happen to any of us at any time. It's the one piece of the diversity conversation that can cross all lines and barriers at any moment in life, no matter age, sex, religion, all of it. And so looking at it like,
I like that point.
Something that allows me, as I change and grow over time in my own life, to access life, to continue to work, to have opportunities. And so really I'm really trying to shift the conversation into an us conversation and look at it as a beautiful opportunity to open up the world for all of us as we change and grow over time.
I love that. I think it's so, the idea that it's the only one that can touch you at any given time is something that never occurred to me, but makes complete sense. And I love that. I'm stealing that because I think it's important as we move across it, especially, so my business owner brain is going. For my international viewers, the Americans with Disabilities Act is pretty much the only legal protection that people who don't have like normal, I'm using normal in a million air quotes, functioning have to protect them, whatever degree to which they fall outside that. That's all we've got in America. And in the United States, if you are under 15 employees, you're not legally obligated to follow it. And a lot of businesses in America are under 15 employees. So there's a lot of mess within that. So just for my international viewers, that's what Alycia's talking about and kind of a lot of what she's up against in terms of the legal space. And we haven't even, like she said before, you can't do that. You can't get to the emotional space until you touch the punitive legal, could I get sued space, unfortunately, within the United States. And I'm sure elsewhere, I'm not as familiar with employment law outside the United States as I am within. But I think I look around my physical space and there's a lot of ways that we could make accommodations that have never even occurred to me. And until I intentionally look, until I intentionally question. And it's the same thing with mental health. It's the same thing with religious stuff. Like we have to have hard hats. Oh, she says we have to have hard hats. And we had somebody interview with us who was Muslim and had a headscarf. And she was like, can I keep it on? I was like, as long as you can put a hard hat over it, I don't care. If you can't put a hard hat, then I can't have you here and that kind of thing. But at no point in time did I really think about what would happen if one of my employees their bodies changed while we were here and while they were employed and what that would look like. So thank you for reminding me that bodies change and that life changes. Thank you.
And they can change for a moment in time, a broken leg. They change for forever like me, or any time in between, aging, illness, a countless other things. And so looking at accessibility as a collective opportunity and conversation. And we also need to realize that things are not going to be perfect. Like,
no,
we need to accommodate as much as we can. But then on the flip side of it, I have to be a proficient planner and I have to adapt and on the fly. And so it's a collective relationship to find a path forward for all of us. It isn't one or the other. Like, it's very fluid, ongoing, hard work, uncomfortable work to literally do, from going to the grocery store to getting on the TEDx stage, and is everything going to be accessible there? Like, it's small to large, like there's always an opportunity to pave a path forward for inclusion for all of us, no matter the situation, but we have to be aware of each other.
Absolutely.
And sort of look at each other through the other's lens.
Yeah. And I think I like that. I mean, all inclusivity, I think, is a conversation. All of it has to be. It all has to be reasonable accommodations on both ends. It all has to be collective, because the point of inclusivity is that nobody is what we see them to be. They are allowed to be their whole selves. And so I don't invite you to somewhere just because you happen to be in a wheelchair. I invite you because you're Alycia, who's brilliant and kind of all those things and can bring a perspective I don't have, but then I have perspectives you don't have, and we work together on that. And
absolutely,
that should be the way it goes. And so as we're wrapping up here, I'm wondering if you've got kind of a pro tip, a piece of advice for anyone who is starting thinking about ability as something they should pay attention to.
Lead with your heart. Human to human contact, conversation. I mean, seem so basic, but a lot of my life, I'm looked over or looked past instead of having how are you? Like, let's open a conversation, which then opens more opportunities to learn about each other. And we have to lead this stuff with our hearts first, have human to human contact and relationships. And then, we then care about putting in the hard, collective, ongoing work that it will take, that's uncomfortable, to learn about one another and figure this stuff out together. And so, I'm all about leading with your heart and learning as we go.
What a beautiful statement and sentiment to end on, because that's not only our brand message here at Abbey Research, but my personal thing too. We're all going to screw up. So let's hold each other as humans and we'll kind of figure it out together. Go ahead.
That's it. It. I agree.
Well, pals, I hope you have had as good of a time listening to Alycia's wisdom as I have had. I hope you've grown and learned and seen the world differently. If you have enjoyed this conversation, I would love a thumbs up or a comment or even a subscription. If you like this conversation, I have lots and lots like them. And we would love for you to join us here on the Abbey Research channel. Everything from how do we think about race in America through the lens of Falcon and Winter Soldier, to why we think everybody needs to watch Taylor Swift's Miss Americana documentary, and then conversations like this as well. And we would love to have you join us. My name is Dr. Kristen Donnelly. This has been Welcome to My World. My guest is Alycia Anderson. All of her contact information, including her TEDx South Lake Tahoe talk, will be below this video. So don't hesitate to reach out to her, follow her on all of her socials. She is zipping around the world on the regular. So you definitely want to be on her LinkedIn and make sure that you're learning from her that way. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you next time. Bye.